are way behind the 8 ball on where we have to get them to a remarkable experience. So that's one of the disruptors I think is kind of coming if we don't use it the right way. It's a powerful tool and it can really work to our potential, but it's dangerous. It's definitely a two-way sword.
I want to add a little bit to that story too, and that is that, in my opinion, I think the biggest disruptor that we have coming is that all of the things that you are building, all the things that you are thinking of building are about to get weaponized. Our democracy has been weaponized and is under siege in many different ways from many different people. And if you don't start thinking about how this could be used against you or your target audience now, you are behind the 8 ball. At my company, it's obviously all about security. It's hard to think about security in the context of what it is that we build. But when we have speakers in, and they come, generally speaking, from the NSA or from the military and all of those places, when you ask them what their biggest concern is the fact that our democracy is under siege. Now, we start to bake that into all of our thinking about how can this be turned against me? And 2 years ago, we wouldn't have talked about Facebook as being a problem in our society, right? Something that would, again, maybe.
I'm a long-time hater of Facebook, so that's just me.
Okay, so I shouldn't have talked about you because I know your opinion on this.
Yeah, sorry.
But the point being, we need to start thinking about how this could be used against us or used against our users, for that matter.
Yeah, so a couple of little stories from the past that always amuse me in a weird, dark, maudlin way. One, so the Romans invented like civic aqueducts infrastructure, right? Like running water throughout a city. That was a big achievement of the Romans. One problem though was lots of people died, got sick, things like that, because it turns out they were using lead in their pipes. It's a good thing we've learned not to put lead in water, by the way, in our country. Rim shot. Anyway, another was around the 1900s or 1800s, not the 1900s.
Like lessons learned.
Yeah, lessons learned. When they started putting gas, right, into homes for sconces, lighting, for heat, using gas in homes. There was a carbon monoxide issue, it turns out, when you burn things in enclosed spaces. And it got people sick. In fact, you may be aware that there was a huge thing in the culture of Victorian culture around seances and the occult and ghosts. It's largely driven because people were hallucinating as they were dying from carbon monoxide poisoning. I bring these up because as a species, we have this tendency to create these amazing things with technology and kind of start to collectively realize, oops, maybe we need to do it a little differently because it's doing stuff to us that maybe isn't great. And we didn't really realize that was going to happen until we did it. So it's almost like touching a hot stove, but billions of people very slowly. And then, I have a feeling with this technology, a lot of us have collectively hit I'm done with that, kind of an inflection point where we're starting to realize, hey, this was fun, but maybe we need to think about this. Maybe we need to think about giving people more agency and transparency with all the stuff we shove at them and we get them to buy and do. Maybe we do things so that they understand that when they're taking an action in a digitally enabled environment, whether that's on a screen or outside of a screen, increasingly, that they understand what their actions that normally they would only think that when I'm doing this, but they don't realize that has a ripple effect that's changing that whole environment's position on them or understanding of them, that's going to advertise to them differently or communicate to them differently or make assumptions about them that maybe aren't good. There's a whole other layer that's just been ignored because of let's move fast and break things, right? But when you're moving fast and breaking things and you're just this little group of people, little hackers, making something and excited about it, that's one thing. When you're creating things that are essentially the infrastructure for civil engagement, that's another. And that's not just a Facebook problem. Okay, so when we talk about in companies that are going into product, everybody's product, And a big thing in product management is the value stream, the idea of the value stream. We were talking about value a minute ago, right? How is your company or organization defining value? When they say value, it's a value stream, what is that? What does that really mean? And technically in product development, it's supposed to include the customer's idea of value. But maybe even if you're including that, maybe it goes beyond just, oh, I'm giving you money and I'm getting this thing. Maybe there's other concentric circles of context and meaning and life around that need to be considered. Maybe we need to embrace the fact that humans are really actually not rational actors, that they may do things that are bad for them if we encourage it and give them that slippery slope. It may make us a lot of money, but in a way we're strip mining our society, right, for this short-term gain for shareholders and whatnot. So I think that it's really a framing and definitional issue. I think we just have to get our heads out of the bubble that we've been stuck in trying to solve the mechanical problem of usability and really think about, well, what does all this really mean and ultimately for humans?
So Jen, I would want to ask, you know, how...
Before we go there, I actually think voice is what's going to disrupt everything.
Oh, this, okay.
Right? So kind of along these lines, what does information architecture look for with voice? I mean, you gave the IVR example, but we're doing it in our houses right now. We're saying, Alexa, what's my day look like? Alexa, what's the weather? Or whichever, Google, what's the weather, right? Whatever you've bought, that's the future, right? And how do you design for that, right? Think about Amazon and Uber and some of these things. The really cool thing about them at the end of the day is they made payments ubiquitous, right? We don't think about, oh, I'm paying for this. I'm hitting a credit card, I'm hitting my... They've made payments ubiquitous. Now you can do it via voice. You can say, Amazon, order me this. Or Alexa, add this to my shopping list, order me this, right? We are spending money with our voice without taking out a credit card, without hitting a button on our phone. I just think the future is voice. We're not going to be carrying, or we may be carrying these devices, but we're not going to be pulling them out of our pockets or out of our handbags. We're going to be just speaking to it, and it's going to get what we need done.
I like that. I just want to take a riff on that one, too, for a second. And anybody who watched the Alexa ad on the Super Bowl, right? Like, then all the pundits came on and said, oh, you know, they said, oh, we're going to turn it off so that it doesn't mess with your system and all that. Guess what? They data mined that big time, right? They must have. Like, the data that they got out of that against what you might have gotten from the TV ratings, brilliant. It was brilliant. I just had to say that.
So I have a question for all of you guys. We talked about how to pull our heads out, as it were, of the sand and sort of redefine what the value stream is. For all of the people here, and I struggle with this at my company, how do you reframe that? Because that's really the hard part, right? You have investors on one side who says, here's the value I want for my money, and then you have the users and the customers and all of these different people. So how do you bring that conversation up?
I can answer. Bringing that conversation up, I think, has to do with, it's really revisiting in a way the sort of rhetorical twist that we discovered 15, 20 years ago for usability and things like that, which was, hey, if you make this work better for people, if it's easier for them, you're gonna get more business if your product has any value at all. I mean, you know, if you can make something useless easy to use, then, you know, good luck. But the problem was like, hey, invest in making this thing easy for people to understand and use, and that's good for them and it's good for you. But that was sort of looking at a keyhole of just the transaction, so to speak, right? Whether it's an information transaction, communication, or money transaction. To me, there's a new level of maturity in this, which is, well, let's, and this goes back to what I was saying before, what's the real value here? What's the sort of tacit, not obviously, you know, like, and something somebody says in a survey or something you're going to see in your monetary metrics value. And to me, for example, like, I think the first company in a certain category of service or product that makes it a point to say to their customers, when you interact with us or our product or our service, you're going to understand what's going on. Nothing's going to happen that you don't understand. And it's all going to be about you first, truly you first, not kind of a veneer of that, but really we're using it to manipulate you to get as much money out of you as possible, or as much attention or clicks or shares or whatever the hell. It's getting past engagement and getting to what being good for humans means. That's different, and I kind of feel like user experience, those of us who claim to be human-centered in our work and that's the value we're bringing into the conversation with business and technology, I think we're really, it's on us in a lot of ways to kind of back up and go, okay, well, what does this really mean? I mean, I do think there's a market advantage in being good in that way. It might be a little bit of an uphill climb, but I think it's the right way to go. So I don't think it's bad for business to do that at all. I think everybody feels overwhelmed. Everybody feels like, I don't know what the hell, what are these notifications? What's this about? What's going on? Wait, I thought I paid that bill. Everybody's going through this crap. Like none of us, and I've said this before in talks, like to people who do this crap for a living, how many of you know what your phone right now is communicating to other services? And nobody knows. None of us do. I mean, unless you're really into that stuff, because there's just like hundreds of things, thousands of things going on there, right? So make all this stuff more clear. Let people go, man, maybe I can, oh good, if I do it with this company or with this service, I can just breathe and not worry so much about being so confused about all this hidden crap that's going on. And to me, in terms of disruption, that's what matters more than chasing the next disruptor, right? Because what makes humans work is still true from thousands of years ago, right? I mean, at base, we're still these mammals, these bags of flesh and gristle and bone that can barely think straight most of the time just to get through the day. At least, that's true of me. And I need help. I need help. Not more crap thrown at me that I have to try to understand and then make wrong decisions with.
So I'm going to try to answer the question from like a business perspective. So if I have to try to, highlight the importance of customer-centric thought and thought leadership and human behavioralism, like one of the big things that I try to do is I try to, if we go into a boardroom or we're talking to a CMO or something like that, then we have to use numbers they're going to understand. So one of the big things I try to connect is, NPS is, depending on where you work, it's a golden number or a nothing number. So I think one of the really important things is when Bain and Sat Matrix created that Net Promoter Score. Sorry, I'm a numbers nerd, so I assume everybody in here knows that. So Net Promoter Score. So 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this company to other people? And then the numbers equation, blah, 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 blah. So the way I like when Bain and Sat Matrix came together with that, they wrote a book that talks about that is by itself irrelevant. And, they kept on talking about the difference between good and bad profit. And that's how I try to have that conversation is if I explain that, we had, 1,300 gross ads yesterday. Fantastic. Our NPS is huge. Okay, how many of those people are we going to keep over time? Okay, and then because to me, profit just on the top line is just profit. But good profit means I'm providing someone something that keeps them here. And the way we do that is we promote customer-centric and human-centric products. You create a malleable experience. You have apps. You have, different things that we design from an IA perspective to be simple. They stay. That's a good profit. You have a return on investment with that human in the door. And so I use that as my way to say, let's go customer-centric. Let's go human-centric. Let's run a design thinking, activity to get our next promo. Well, we just really need to sell 1,500 units. Well, why don't we sell 1,500 units the right way so we don't lose it? And that's how it's worked from a business perspective, less on the philosophy of why we need to do it, but more of that's how we've gained some traction. So
I probably meet with 3,000 startup entrepreneurs